You don't have a name. You have a number, and even that isn't really yours. The machine you serve doesn't know you exist. But you don't understand that yet. For now, you just want to make it to the end of the week. Level 1, Cadet. You're 17. You're standing in a line of 200 boys just like you on a concrete parade ground, and the sergeant is screaming into your face so close you can feel the spit hit your cheek. They told you to forget who you used to be. Forget the village. Forget the name your mother gave you. From this day on, you're the letters TK and 5 digits you'll be repeating in your sleep. The recruiter promised you order. A galaxy where you could walk the streets at night without fear. Steady pay, hot food, a roof over your head. He didn't mention the marching. 20 kilometers under the noon sun in full gear. He didn't mention how the armor rubs your shoulders raw in the first week. You learn to shoot at holograms of rebels. You learn to hold the line. You learn to sleep 4 hours and be on your feet at the siren before your eyes are even open. But the most important thing you learn is to not ask questions. That's the big one. Nobody asks questions here. They feed you gray paste from a tube that gives you exactly enough strength to make it to evening. They play you the same clips over and over about how the galaxy would drown in blood without the Empire. After the 100th time, you stop arguing with it, even in your own head. Not because you believe it. Arguing is just too exhausting. Around you, boys drop from the heat. Someone breaks in the second week and asks to go home in the middle of the night. They take him away, and you never see him again. You don't ask where. You already understand the rules. And there's only one rule here. You are replaceable. There are hundreds of thousands just like you on dozens of planets just like this one, and the conveyor belt won't stop if you break. It'll just swallow the next one. Level 2, Stormtrooper. You get the armor. White, clean, still smelling like the factory. In a week it'll be dust, soot, and someone else's blood. You stand in the hold of a dropship, shoulder to shoulder with 40 other faceless shapes, and nobody says a word. The engines howl. The floor shakes under your boots. Your mouth is dry, and you're glad nobody can see your face under the helmet. The doors open. You run forward because everyone runs forward. You fire where everyone else fires. The blaster kicks in your hands, bolts vanish into the smoke, and you have no idea if you've hit anything at all. Someone next to you falls and doesn't get up. You hear the bolt punch through armor, a sound you'll never forget. You don't stop. You can't stop. You're one of 5,000 on this ship. One of millions in the galaxy. When the officers plan an operation, they don't see you. They see a number. So many soldiers per sector. So many acceptable losses. You are an acceptable loss that happens to still be breathing. On the holonet they call you the terror of the galaxy, the fist of the emperor. In reality you're a 17-year-old boy who misses, because your hands are shaking and your visor is fogged up from the inside. Level 3, Specialist. You found a loophole. Same pay, same rank on paper, but while the others dig trenches in the rain, you sit under a tarp and assemble a sniper rifle. The army needs more than arms holding blasters. It needs scouts, medics, walker crews, comms techs. Men with a skill. Men like you. You've got a sharp eye. An officer noticed it when you dropped a target at 300 meters that nobody else could even make out. A week later they moved you to recon. Light armor instead of heavy, a long-range rifle, a speeder under you instead of worn-out boots. Now you lie on a ridge and watch a road through your scope for hours. You see the enemy before anyone else. You call in the coordinates in a flat voice, and then you watch fire fall from the sky onto the spot where, a minute ago, people were moving. You're still a private on paper. No authority, no command. But you'll never dig another trench. Sometimes the smartest way up is sideways. Level 4, Squad Leader. There's an orange pauldron on your shoulder now. 9 men are your responsibility. You're the leader of the smallest unit in the Imperial machine. 9 stormtroopers who march together, eat together, and sleep together in one cramped bunk room. You didn't ask for this. The captain pointed at you after a battle and said, "Keep these idiots alive." So you do. You break up their fights over rations. You cover their mistakes in front of command. You make sure one of them stops drinking before inspection, and another finally writes his mother so he stops crying into his pillow at night, thinking nobody can hear. In battle, you're the one who holds the line. The one who screams hold when every instinct is screaming run. Last week you lost one. An ambush in a canyon, bolts coming from behind every rock. He was 18, the youngest in the squad. You carried his body back to camp yourself, trusting no one with it. Tonight you'll divide his belongings among the others. Tomorrow you'll train the one who replaces him, and you'll try not to memorize his face. It's easier that way. That's how everyone lives now. Level 5, Sergeant. A black pauldron. 30 men look to you now when it gets bad. You don't lead them into the charge first, that's what the officers are for. You walk at the rear, and when a soldier thinks about flinching and running, the first thing he sees is you. There's a shock baton in your hand. It isn't ceremonial. You use it. Last week you cracked it across the helmet of a kid who broke formation under fire and nearly opened the whole flank. He never broke formation again. They don't love you, and that's fine. The lack of love keeps them sharp, and sharp keeps them alive. They can love you later as old men, telling stories in some cantina about the bastard sergeant who wouldn't let them die. You remember being a cadet. You remember a sergeant just like you screaming into your face, and how you hated him with everything in you. Now that face is yours behind the visor. One day you just turned around, and behind you stood men who needed you not to flinch. And you didn't flinch. Level 6, Lieutenant. You took off the Stormtrooper helmet and put on an officer's cap. A gray uniform instead of white armor. It's the first real rung of power, and it sits strangely light on your shoulders after all those years under plastic. You have a platoon now. 40 men. You don't run in the first wave anymore, you stand behind the line with a datapad and give orders into your headset. Part of you still wants to grab a blaster and stand in the line with the boys, because in the line everything was simpler. There was only the next step and the next shot. The captain above you isn't the type to forgive mistakes. He grinds you the way the sergeant once did, only now without the shouting, in a cold, even voice that's worse than any scream. You sign your first casualty report. 3 names. 2 of them you knew by sight. The third you don't. He came in with the replacements 2 days ago, and you never even learned his number. You sign, freeze for a second, then move on. That's how your life works now. A signature. The next report. Level 7, Captain. You serve aboard a Star Destroyer. You have a company under you, 120 men, and every one of them is a whole world to someone, and a line in a ledger to you. You walk the sterile corridors of a ship longer than some cities. From the bridge, the galaxy looks like a map, not the mud, blood, and worn-out boots it was for you 10 years ago. It's clean here. It's quiet. It's easy to forget that down there, on the planets, people in white armor are still dying with your old number on their chests. The junior officers respect you. They salute when you pass. A year ago they didn't know your name. Now they do. But you notice something else too. There are men in black on this ship who don't answer to captains. They answer straight to the ones at the top. And sometimes an officer who argued too loudly in a meeting is simply gone from the roster the next morning. His quarters are cleared out by lunch. Nobody asks where he went. You don't ask either. You remember the rules they taught you in the very first week far too well. Level 8 Major. You don't have a company under you anymore, you have a battalion. Several ships, several planets, thousands of men you'll never see in person. You're a bigger cog now, but still a cog in the same machine. You sit in meetings where the fates of entire worlds are decided over a cup of CAF. Someone draws a line on the holomap, and to you that means 3,000 men in white armor will land tomorrow where they're expected. You remember what it's like to be the one being landed, the fogged visor and the shaking hands in the trembling hold. But now you're on the other side of the map, and you stay quiet when the line is drawn too carelessly. Once you tried to object. You said the losses would be higher than projected. The colonel asked whether you thought you understood this better than the staff did. You said, "No, sir. The line was drawn where they wanted it. The losses came in higher than projected, exactly as you'd said." Nobody ever mentioned it again, least of all you. Level 9, Colonel. You command the garrison of an entire planet. The city is beneath you, the orbit is beneath you, the walkers and the fighters are beneath you. The locals look at the ground when you cross the square. They're afraid of you. They used to be afraid of others while you stood in the line and were part of that fear, a faceless shape in the ranks. Now the fear wears your face. You put down an uprising in one of the city's districts. The order is simple. Restore order at any cost. You restore it. By morning the streets are quiet again. The smoke is clearing. You tell yourself you saved more lives than you took. that the chaos would have killed more. Some nights, the good ones, you even believe it. Above you are generals younger and better connected than you. They were born into the right families. They'll command fleets and you won't. But when their plans fall apart, when their garrisons burn and their maps don't match the ground, they call for you. Because you walked every rung of this ladder from the bottom on your own 2 feet, and you know things that aren't written in any manual. Level 10, the station. They transfer you to a new posting, and when your shuttle comes in on it, at first you mistake it for a moon. A gray sphere the size of a whole world, bristling with guns. A battle station with no equal in the galaxy. Thousands of stormtroopers are under your command in its endless white corridors. More men than your entire First Army put together. You walk those corridors and you can't shake one feeling. Everyone here is too certain. Officers talk like they're immortal. You, who survived an ambush in a canyon and carried an 18-year-old's corpse on your back. No, there's no such thing. You've seen enormous things collapse over one small flaw nobody bothered to notice in time. One day you report a weak point in the defenses. They hear you out politely and ignore you just as politely. You're a man from the bottom. What could you know about stars? You shrug and move on. You learned a long time ago never to argue with the staff twice. Level 11, General. There are stars on your tunic. An entire army is under your hand, a sector of the galaxy, dozens of worlds, a fleet over your head. The Emperor signed your appointment personally. You knelt in a hall of black stone and swore an oath, not daring to raise your eyes. 30 years ago you were nobody, a 17-year-old boy with a number for a name, digging trenches in the rain, counting the hours until the end of his shift. You killed your first man before you grew a beard. And now millions carry out your orders without knowing who you are or where you came from. Every victory reflects on you. Every defeat stains you. The young officers under you watch with hungry eyes. One of them will take your place if you show weakness for even a day. Let them watch. You've outlived men far worse than them. At night you still dream of a fogged visor. Sometimes you wake in a cold sweat and for a couple of seconds you don't know whether you're a general or still that cadet on the parade ground. Then you see the stars on the tunic thrown over the chair, and you remember what you've become. Level 12, Moff. You don't command only soldiers anymore. Now you rule a sector. 3 fleets answer to you, but that's just the military part. Beyond the docks and the garrisons, billions of civilians live under your authority, and most of them will never learn your name, just as once nobody knew it at all. Everyday decisions land on your desk that would have turned the younger you's stomach. You decide who gets pardoned and who gets executed. You decide when to negotiate and when to send a fleet and wipe the problem off the orbit. The Emperor's name is on every order. But you're the one writing them late at night when the corridors empty out. And that's exactly the problem. A Moff with 3 fleets and loyal troops is a dangerous man. You've served so long that sometimes you catch yourself wondering whether they trust you up there at all, or whether they keep you on a distant sector precisely because they don't want to see you anywhere near the capital. First, they extended your term once. Then again. You tell yourself it's a sign of trust. But deep down, you're not so sure anymore. Level 13, Grand Moff. You're at the very top, a man born as nobody can reach. Beneath you isn't a sector but an oversector, a whole scattering of worlds on the edge of the map. Admirals snap to attention when you enter the hall. Planetary governors wait on your word like a verdict, and often it is one. You sit in an office with a panoramic window, the stars drifting slowly past it, and you hold in your hands fates you didn't even know existed 30 years ago. You walked every rung. You outlived men better, smarter, and higher born than you. You didn't claw your way here over corpses, you just turned out to be the one still standing when everyone else had fallen. But there are 2 figures who still make you go cold. The Emperor, whose face you saw only once and would rather never see again. And the man in the black mask who breathes like a machine, who once walked across your bridge in silence, and every officer in the hall held their breath, because any of them could become the one who stops breathing at a single movement of a gloved hand. You understood the main thing while you were still a private, but you only truly grasped it now, at the top. Power doesn't make you safe. The higher you climbed, the more visible you became. And visibility in this empire is the most dangerous thing that can happen to you. You'll look back on your life and see a long white chain. Cadet, Stormtrooper, Specialist, Sergeant, Officer, General, Moff. And at the very start of that chain, A 17-year-old boy who only wanted to make it to the end of the week, who was promised a galaxy without fear. You got the galaxy. You got the power, the uniform, the stars on your tunic, and the fear in other men's eyes. There's only one thing you didn't get. Safety. Because the machine you gave your whole life to never learned your name. It learned only your usefulness. And usefulness is something that runs out one day. For everyone. For you too. And somewhere in the dusty archives of the Empire, your first personnel file still sits. The name your mother gave you, neatly crossed out with one black line. A number written in by hand above it. 5 digits you still sometimes repeat in your sleep, without understanding why. You rose to the very top of an enormous machine. But the machine stayed a machine. And you stayed a number. Only now, a number with a very good view from the window.